Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the desk corner, of course, or welcome if you are new here. Today I am coloring in the hair of this girl, this portrait I've been working on for over a month now, just because I don't always work on it every day, and it seems like the entire portrait is taking me close to like 30 or 40 hours to do, so believe me, I'm very excited to be done with it. I just thought I would put the entire hair process into one sped up big video and show you guys the final portrait at the end. Now I was planning on making this into a tutorial, but then I realized that it's been so long since I've done hair with colored pencils that I don't even think I'm qualified to make it into a tutorial. I had a few issues when trying to create the hair in this drawing. I'm not sure if that has to do with the paper or my techniques that I was using, but I wasn't really able to get that richness of color that I was hoping to get, and I also had some difficulty creating realistic looking strands. Now, in the reference photo, there's parts that were blurred where you can't really see the strands of the hair, and I found it difficult to achieve that look. The mixed media paper I'm using is Strathmore mixed media, and it's the 400 series. It has a bit of a texture on it that makes it a little hard to get certain types of fine details, especially with things like hair. And eventually, it's not that I maxed out on layers, but I just wasn't really getting the texture that I was looking for. I ended up using my Tombow Mono Zero eraser a lot because I was getting a streaky look and just not really, I guess, the texture, as I mentioned, that I was trying to get. In some areas, I had trouble building up contrast as well, and this is an issue I have when working on lighter hair sometimes. So instead of making this into a tutorial, I am just going to kind of go through the steps of what I'm doing. I'll still talk to you guys about what I did here in each section, but I definitely need improvement and some practice. It has been a while since I've worked on a colored pencil portrait, so I guess I really just need to get back on that and practice with a few pieces before I can create more tutorials. So one of my issues was that the Polychromos pencils show up rather transparent in the first layers, and the slow buildup of this was a little bit frustrating when trying to work on a blurry hair texture, because even though it looked a little bit blurry, I still needed to get the texture right and also build up the contrast enough, since this photo was such high contrast. And you're using a different technique when you're working on hair. You're not using the same like circular motions you would use when you work on skin. Your strokes are more linear and you're trying to get more of a direction. So using the pencil strokes to create that direction can be difficult in areas that are blurry. At least that's what I found. I also didn't want to make it look too stiff. I wanted to break it apart, make sure it looked like it was flowing. So I wasn't completely satisfied with how this hair turned out in the portrait. I don't think it's a strong area in my portrait, but that's okay because really I think overall it turned out looking fine, and it was really great practice to get back into portraits with colored pencils, something I've been avoiding for a while due to how long they take in comparison to like charcoal or graphite portraits, which I can do a lot faster. It just seems like anything you do with colored pencil takes so much longer than other mediums, and I do love colored pencils still, but sometimes this can just be frustrating, especially when you're working on one piece for so long. So you could see I finally was able to build up some contrast. I used my black and sepia Polychromos pencil for certain areas to really build that up, and then I was trying to break it apart by adding some strands to make it look more realistic. I moved on to the other side so that the two bottom areas could look kind of similar if I worked on them around the same time. And I'm using my burnt umber and a couple other browns, I think it's burnt sienna, black and sepia, to slowly build up the shadow. You don't want to go in with just black. You want to put some brown or red underneath, darker colors, and then maybe put the black on top, just because if you go in with just black for certain shadows, it can look kind of flat, and you'll get a much richer black if you build it up with some other colors as well. So that's why you see me spending so long working on that shadowed area there at the bottom. This area was so hard to work on too because there was kind of a blurry section here as well with these strands of hair. And I'm not really used to working on blurry looking hair. And you guys, I have mentioned before in previous videos, I think that one of the main reasons I chose this reference photo is because of the color scheme. It was just so warm. There were so many oranges, reds, and even a few yellows and creams that I was really excited to work with. And I just love working with high contrast pictures when I'm going to work on something like a human or animal portrait. I am not as interested in pictures that don't have higher contrast. It's kind of just my style of working. I really like to get those deep shadows and really bright highlights. For any of those really bright highlights, I didn't leave them completely white like the one on the nose. I would use maybe my buff titanium from the Luminance set, or even like a cream or ivory from the Faber Castell set, but I would still want to leave it fairly light. And at several points earlier when I was working on the skin, I used my Tombow Mono Zero eraser to lighten up highlights because they had gotten too dark, which sometimes happens when you're working on building up midtones. It's pretty self-explanatory how I'm working on the hair here. You can kind of just see me slowly building up the colors. I'm not focusing on making individual strands because the hair didn't look like that in the photo. It was quite blurry, and I still struggled with making it look soft because there were some areas where I kept getting harsher lines. Again, I haven't worked on hair with colored pencil in so long that I feel like I just need to get some more practice with it. I didn't have much trouble with the skin. That came pretty naturally to me, but the hair, it was just a little bit more difficult. Maybe the paper was making it a little difficult because it's so like textured since it's a mixed media paper. What paper do you guys suggest when working on something like fine hair or even fur for animals, which I seem to struggle with? Let me know in the comments down below if that's something that you know more about than I do. I think that this section was by far the most difficult of the entire portrait because the hair was a little bit messed up in this section. Again, it was a little blurry, so you couldn't see individual strands. I was trying to achieve the blurry look, but it was also hard not to get harsh lines, especially with those Polychromos pencils that have just kind of like a harder lead or a firmer lead to them. By no means are they scratchy, but the firmer lead sometimes creates lines if you're not careful to be very soft in comparison to if you're working with a very waxy pencil like the Prismacolors. Then everything tends to blend together a lot quicker. I was working with the Luminance as well here because the Luminance did have a lot of colors that I guess the Polychromos didn't, or that were a little more vibrant, but maybe I should have worked with just the Luminance, since normally Polychromos are great for fine details, but there weren't really that many fine details in the lower part of the hair, especially on this side. Now the photo was also cut off, so I had to kind of fix that look of it looking like it was cut off on the right side, and I tried to add some more hair in a little bit later to make it look more natural, but I think that left side turned out a lot better than the right side, if I'm being honest. So this is where it started to look a little bit funny on the right side here because that's where the photo was cut off. And so you can kind of see that it looks cut off there, and I was like, uh-oh, I need to try and fix this a little bit. And yeah, I didn't really have like definite borders in this portrait. It just kind of ends at one point, and I tried to keep that border at the bottom fairly straight, but you know, I don't worry about stuff like that too much as long as it's not extremely crooked. And then I didn't have to worry about that for the top and the sides, obviously. It's just the right side was a little bit awkward looking, I think. And I started to move up to the top of the scalp, which was also a little bit difficult because it had a little bit more hair detail. Again, I found getting that detail on this paper to be kind of tricky for some reason. It might just be my technique or the pencils that I was using, I don't know. If you guys have had similar experiences, let me know. You can see I'm trying to build up the contrast and the shadows first with my browns, and then adding black on top only for like the darkest areas. But there were a lot of dark areas for this photo in particular, so I had to make sure my drawing really lived up to the contrast that it was supposed to have. And the hairline was actually a little bit awkward too here, as you can see. I do struggle with this hair color a little bit. It's a lot harder than straight up brown or darker black hair or even blonde hair, because this hair has a lot of different colors in it. There's some oranges, some reds because of the high contrast in the photo, browns, and then kind of like some cream colors where the highlights are supposed to be. So I found it a little bit difficult to create all those colors here, but overall I think that it turned out just fine. Let me know what you guys think, or if you have any tips for how I could make it better next time, or if you have any recommendations for techniques or papers that are great to use when you're trying to draw realistic hair or fur. On an unrelated topic, I apologize if you guys haven't been hearing too much from me lately. I have been posting videos once a week here on this channel, as well as posting videos sometimes once a week on my new horror channel, which I'll link down below. I announced that in my previous video, but I found it a little bit difficult to be working on art lately, especially pieces like this that take so long and so much patience. So in my previous videos, I worked on some more fun and quick art, and I might be doing more of that, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to tackle another big project. I've been having some stressful life changes going on right now, some stressful medical stuff that really freaks me out because I get very anxious about anything health related. I just have very high anxiety when it comes to anything like that. So focusing on a project this large and that takes this much time has been kind of difficult for me, and I might have to stick to some smaller and fun projects in the near future. I also thought about maybe making some sit-down videos where I just talk about, like basic art topics, fun things like that, maybe do some swatches or some basic stuff while I'm talking. I don't know. If you guys would like to see art topic videos like that, sometimes let me know, because sometimes I don't feel like creating a full-blown piece. And that's actually one of the reasons I did start my second channel, was because it's fun to kind of just sit down and talk and make a video that way as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I love working on the art, but sometimes when things get busy and I get stressed out, it's hard for me to focus on projects that are this complicated. I know this isn't the most complicated project in the world, but anything colored pencil, like a portrait or maybe an animal portrait with a high amount of detail where I'm attempting to get a very realistic look, it can be a little bit stressful and time consuming. I'm not going to lie, sometimes I just don't feel like working on something like that. I really tried to build up these last few portions or areas of hair slowly, but I felt like I was getting that translucent look that you sometimes get with the Polychromos, so I then attempted to really darken up that contrast, brighten things up, add more color, and I still need to work on it a little bit more. Hopefully I can add the additional clip at the very end, or if not, I will just show you guys the final scan of the artwork at the end, because I was very close to being done at this point, but not quite done with the hair. Pretty sure everything else was done though, so I might add the additional clip and I might not. But I want to know what you guys thought of this portrait. I do want to work on some other portrait projects eventually with different color schemes, different skin tones that I could practice, and maybe different hair textures so I can get some practice with that too, and really just build up my colored pencil portrait skills. But we are approaching Halloween time, so I thought I would do some themed content as well. And as I mentioned before, maybe some more fun and light and shorter artworks that don't take me 30 to 40 hours to complete would be great. I'd just like to mention that I will be posting the real-time version of me drawing this hair on my Patreon. My link to my Patreon is down below. It's rather new, but I have quite a few posts up there now if you're interested in seeing some real-time content. And now I will show you guys a scan of the final complete drawing, and let me know what you think, how you thought this one turned out. I had so much fun with this one, even if it was just a little bit stressful and took up a lot of time. But in the end, I'm happy that I worked on it, and I think I learned a lot from this portrait. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and leave a comment down below, of course. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!